Are these people just democratic capitalists, or are they, some of them are in fact Marxists to the point of verging on communism? No, Cenk?
Yeah, so good news, he's the mayor, so we're going to find out, and we're already finding out. So there was scare tactics used against him. Oh my God, he's going to do this or that. And by the way, he did once say something about seizing the means of production, so I get it. That's fair, right? That's a fair criticism of Mamdani. And I said throughout the campaign, listen, his policies are a little to the left of me. I don't believe in rent control. I don't think that that's helpful. I think it is ironically counterproductive, et cetera. But I want him to try things. And I don't need him to try all my ideas. I would need him to try the ideas the voters of New York are in favor of. And then let's see how they go.
Oh boy. Did you guys catch that?
Listen, his policies are a little to the left of me. I don't believe in rent control. I don't think that that's helpful. I think it is ironically counterproductive, et cetera. But I want him to try things.
Bruh.
And I don't need him to try all my ideas. I would need him to try the ideas the voters of New York are in favor of. And then let's see how they go.
What's the point in trying something if you know it doesn't work? Yeah, it's popular. But just because something's popular doesn't mean it's going to be good policy. And rent control hardly ever results in the actual positive benefits people want to see. Let's take a little sidebar here. What does rent control actually accomplish? First, rent control actually reduces the supply of available housing. So if you're a landlord and the government tells you that you can't charge market rent, your return on that property drops. In some cases, landlords can actually lose money every month while keeping a unit occupied. So what ends up happening? Some owners simply decide not to rent the unit at all. Why deal with the headache, right? Others convert properties to different uses where the regulations allow, and developers become much less interested in building new rental housing in the first place. The financial incentive just isn't there. It discourages the very thing you need to solve a housing shortage with: more housing. Second, rent control actually leads to the deterioration of existing housing. This one should be a no-brainer, folks. If a landlord is losing money or barely breaking even on a property, what incentive do they have to renovate, to replace the roof, upgrade the plumbing, do basic upkeep? Even this sort of stuff gets delayed or even not done at all because the return simply isn't there. If the landlord's losing $150 on a unit each month, why is he going to come fix your pipes? What this leads to is that over time, the quality of the housing stock declines. And ironically, the people living in those rent-controlled units are the ones who suffer the consequences. Those units essentially become what's called a golden prison. Because not only does the unit get worse over time, but there's no way you're going to leave. Why would you leave a unit paying $400 a month in New York City when the market rate is $3,500 for the same unit elsewhere? Third, rent-controlled unit apartments don't necessarily go to the people who need them the most. So this is something that a lot of people don't realize. And it differs by jurisdiction. But in a place like New York City, rent-stabilized apartments aren't simply handed out to the poorest families. The allocation of rent-controlled units is actually a lottery system, not necessarily income. I mean, look at Zoran Mamdani before he became mayor. He came from a very wealthy family and was a state assemblyman, but he lived in a rent-controlled apartment. Remind me again how that helps the working class? And finally, and I think this is the biggest issue, rent control puts even more pressure on the middle class. So developers and landlords still have to make projects financially viable, especially long-term. They have to break even somewhere. So if government policies reduce profitability in one part of the market, they'll naturally shift investment toward projects where they can still earn a return and ideally make up for those losses. That usually means building more luxury housing while building less middle-income housing. Now you've created a two-tier system. You have either rent-controlled units or luxury units. If you're lucky enough to have a rent-controlled apartment, congrats. Now, if you're not, you're competing for a smaller pool of market rate housing, which pushes rents even higher. That leaves middle-class professionals with three terrible options to choose from. First, they have to stomach exorbitant rent prices for market rate luxury apartments. 2, they hope they win the lottery and get a rent-controlled unit. Or 3, they just decide to leave the city altogether. That's not making housing more affordable. It's making affordable housing scarcer for everybody who doesn't already have it. This brings me back to Cenk's argument. If you already believe the policy is likely to fail, why are you excited to see a politician like Zoran Mamdani implement more of it? Why are you willing to champion these DSA candidates who have equally insane proposals? That's the inconsistency. And it's exactly why I think Sean's criticism landed. The goal of rent control is admirable. Everybody wants housing to be affordable, and it's definitely popular, like we said. But good intentions don't repeal economics. And when you reduce the incentive to build housing, reduce the incentive to maintain housing, and fail to target assistance to the people who need it most, you push more costs onto everybody outside the rent control system. And thus, you shouldn't really be surprised when affordability actually gets worse, not better. Thanks for bearing with me on that, guys. Now back to the debate.
But did he say, okay, well, I'm going to come into New York and I'm going to seize all the banks that are in New York and Wall Street? No, he said, I'm going to do free buses and I'm going to do city-run grocery stores, which I think is kind of Muslim unemployment plan, because almost all the bodegas in New York are run by Muslims. So I didn't love any of those particular policies, but I loved the idea of change and not serving the status quo. So I was totally in favor of him. Good news, he's the mayor now, and we could see exactly what he's doing, and he's not doing any of the extreme stuff. He's doing things
he only
that
has so much authority and power. He can't do everything, just change it all at once.
No, but wait, Brad, you can't say I'm worried he's going to seize all the capital and do all these crazy things and turn New York communist. And then when he doesn't do that and he actually does popular things, say, well, that's because he doesn't have enough power.
I didn't say that I thought he would actually seize the means. I'm saying that's who he is at heart and what he believes in.
But so what matters is what he does as mayor. And so far, the things he's done as mayor are intensely popular and not one bit radical. So the proof's in the pudding.
Well, again,
Sean,
popular and radical are not two different things. I mean, you say, oh, I don't support rent control, but I'm excited to see him try things. Well, he got his rent freeze. Like, congratulations to him. He's doubling down on the same rent stabilization program that has failed in the city of New York since the 1970s. We've had rent control since the 1940s. We can look at New Rochelle, 30 minutes from me, north of New York City. Right now, they cleaned up their zoning code, allowed building. Rents are falling. We can look at Austin, Texas, Minneapolis. So we know it actually works in terms of, fixing affordability. But Mamdani, of course, is not in favor of that. He's in favor of price controls. He announced an effort as the mayor's office to take buildings that are in disrepair. By the way, they're in disrepair because they can't afford the upkeep on the buildings because of rent control and rent stabilization, because he believes in community ownership of these properties. This is what he said that he wanted to do when he was at the Gravel Institute, and he's implementing it right now. So we could pretend, oh, well, he's trying things and it's popular now. It's like, yeah, rent control sounds good. This is one of the major problems. Let's see how it goes. But we have, a 70 plus years of history of this policy in the city of New York absolutely failing, and he's doubling down on it and pretending it's changed. So yeah, he is doing the radical things that he said he was going to do. He is proving to be the socialist that we all knew he was, but we're just going to pretend it away because he smiles and he talks about the Knicks as if it was his accomplishment.
Okay. Well, yeah,
just
sorry.
real quick on that.
Real quick.
So look, guys, if more good news. If rent control, by the way, rent control is not communist. There's been rent control in American cities in the 1970s, 80s, 90s, all the way through today, and we never turned communist. But if it turns out that it's a failure, then great. Then your next
why are you saying it like
get
it's a
to run it.
mystery? Like, and you've said in the past that rent control doesn't work. You're
Sean,
like, if it turns out to not work out, this policy that before Mamdani, I told my audience repeatedly doesn't work. Like, come on, it won't work.
So, Sean, no, that's my theory, and that's what I believe. But I'm not the voters in New York. The voters in New York decided they were so sick of the housing prices that they'd want to try it. And if it turns out that it backfires, then you'll get to run a candidate saying, see, Mamdani's idea on that didn't work. And then you accidentally said something really important. You said, well, it could be radical even if it's popular. And because that all of his policies today are popular. So now you're calling all the voters radical. And I would say to you that maybe all the voters aren't radical, that maybe your beliefs are a little bit radical if you think that the average American or the average voter is radical. And I've never seen the voters be called radical when they vote for corrupt establishment, Democrats or Republicans. They're never, ever called radical then. But the minute they vote for someone who is outside of this current corrupt system, all of a sudden they're radicals. So I want the audience and the viewers to notice that because of who gets smeared and who doesn't.
Okay,
and
guys.
I think that
you should notice that they are radical. Yes, New York is a more left-wing place than other places in the country. I live here. I am the New York City voters. I have to deal with this nonsense. I have to deal with rental increases going up in market rate apartments because unlike Mamdani, I wasn't lucky enough to get into a rent-stabilized place while I'm the children of multimillionaires and was in the state assembly. Like, we actually have to deal with the consequences of this. And yeah, it's a stupid policy. It is a radical policy. And again, again, this is something that we've been doing since the 70s. It hasn't worked. 44% of New York City apartments are already in rent stabilization. They've been capped at increases at 1.5% a year since 1974. This does not work. This is a failed policy. In Los Angeles, you got 60% of your apartments in rent stabilization. Is your city more affordable? Is it that much more affordable than New York City? In San Francisco, you have around 2/3 of the apartments in rent stabilization. Is San Francisco more affordable than New York and Los Angeles because they do more rent stabilization? No, it's a ridiculous policy. They are radical because it's something that has been done away with in large swaths of the country. So most of America has moved on from this, and Mamdani is doubling down on it. And it's not going to work out because, again, economic flat earthers, their theories don't work.
Okay, I guess we will see how it goes. I share your skepticism, but who knows? We are a little bit over time here. I really appreciate both of you coming together for an honest dialogue and conversation. Cenk Uygur, Sean Fitzgerald, links below in the description to check out their work. Thank you guys both so much for coming on and making the time.
Thank you for having me.
So that was the debate, guys. Let's analyze how each participant did. So Cenk had several issues that recurred and kept popping back up. First, Cenk kept throwing out red herrings and consistently pivoted when he didn't want to answer a question, specifically around the Grand Platinum Nazi tattoo thing. Sean made a very good point about how Cenk wouldn't extend that charitability to the other side of the aisle, and Cenk never answered it. Second was his appeal to popularity. Again, just because something is popular does not mean it's going to be a sound political policy. And last was his inconsistency. This is where Cenk argued that it's good to try rent control policies, even though it's been proven over and over that rent control policies produce negative outcomes. And for Sean, he's a pretty strong debater. He stayed consistent, he stayed logical, and he stayed on topic. All in all, I think Cenk got blown out of the water here. Now, credit where credit is due to, Cenk went on and actually debated Sean on this, but Cenk didn't do his research. You see, Sean on his channel, he breaks down what the Young Turks do a lot. He knows Cenk backwards and forwards. I don't think Cenk did any research into Sean, and it showed. But anyways, those are just my thoughts, guys. Let me know what y'all think down in the comments. If you think my analysis was good, if it sucked, if you want to punch me in my dumb face and knock that stupid red hat off my head, let me know. And again, thanks for the support. It's been an awesome week getting this channel up and going. I really appreciate everything, guys. Thanks. Are you looking for more content like this? Hit that subscribe button and check out the link on screen. Come on, you know you want to do it.